Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And we're here at the MEDITECH Live Conference, and our guests are Darrell Bodnar, CIO at North Country Healthcare, and Bob Gronberg. He's AVP MEDITECH Professional Services at CereCore. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Glad to be here.
Excited for the discussion. Before we dive into today's topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and North Country Healthcare?
My name is Darrell Bodnar, Chief Information Officer for North Country Healthcare. We're a small group of 3 critical access hospitals serving the northern third of New Hampshire. We have a fairly robust home health and hospice program that's included with that, and very happy to be here.
Awesome. Bob?
And I'm Bob Gronberg. I'm the AVP of the MEDITECH Professional Services at CereCore. And CereCore is a full-service IT organization working primarily in the MEDITECH space. I myself have been in this space for about 35 years, about half of that as consultant, so I'm pretty excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, well, Darrell, EHR really is the backbone of pretty much every healthcare organization, especially provider organizations today. But talk to us about the challenges you've been facing today and some of the strategies you've been using to optimize your EHR and resolve some of those challenges.
Well, I think your point about an EMR optimization is key. North Country Healthcare, I mean, implementing an EMR is that's it. It's implemented, and you're cleaning up the debris and the blood and glass after the fact, and that sometimes can take a while. But as we've noticed, is that the EMR, and particularly some of the functionality that is built into the EMR, tends to go unused. So the optimization visits that we've looked at are sort of a staged approach where it keeps going up, and you implement a new certain functionality and then review it and put it in. And that has been one of our successes in better leveraging the EMR and getting the most use out of it. Unfortunately, a lot of times organizations don't fully understand all of that functionality, nor do they have the expertise to understand what that looks like. And one thing I should probably mention is that North Country Healthcare itself came together as 3 critical access hospitals. We came from 5 different EMRs, and,
Really?
and the challenge of that, of collapsing those all into one, was challenging. But in doing so, we found how unstandardized we were. So bringing in resources like CereCore with best practices can help us get to the point where we can have an external view and what is our best practice and our developing best practice and path forward.
Yeah. I always think, some people are like, why don't you just implement all the functionality in day one? And you're like, you've obviously never done an implementation, right? Like,
You're absolutely
there's
right.
so much to do, right? You understand that, Bob, working with all your clients, I'm sure.
Well, and we, an implementation like that is a heavy lift for an organization, right? You end up focusing on the core foundational components.
Right.
I have this in my old system, on my old systems. I've got to get it up and running. I can't lose that functionality.
Yep.
And about 2/3 of the way through every implementation project, people are sitting down at a table like right here and having that conversation like, what can we pull out of scope? Are we going to extend our time frame? How much is this going to cost? And invariably, scope gets pared down, again, to this base foundational set of components, and then they kind of move forward. The problem is, once you put those things on in a parking lot to get back to later, it never happens. The organization, once they go through the live, there's a corporate collective sigh. And everybody's like, it's done, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because all this other stuff you didn't do.
For sure.
And to that point, while you're waiting to come back to that, if you ever do, which is something we try to do, and MEDITECH is phenomenal about producing and enhancing their product. You have 8,500 other enhancements that have now been developed, and you have no idea what those look like. So I think that anybody who doesn't consider a long-term partnership with a vendor to continue to optimize your EMR is really shortchanging themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, talk to us about some of the benefits or the outcomes that you've experienced as a result of these optimization efforts. Are there some good examples you could point to?
Oh, there's a lot of them. I mean, there's some low-hanging fruit that they can identify. CereCore brings together a vast history of what they've done. So there's some obvious ones that we may not have identified. And then, as I mentioned, 3 hospitals, but we have 3 best practices, identifying a single best practice to bring us together and to standardize on that best practice. is key, and building that into functionality, and I don't want to say customization, but it really is to suit the needs of that particular organization. Not three, but one organization is key. And the talent that we have in-house is very good, but they don't have the visibility of that external view, and they see it merely from the affiliate hospital lens that they came from.
Interesting. Well, and maybe they don't have the bandwidth either, right?
Very true, very true.
We're all overwhelmed with the operational minutia that sometimes it's hard to get past that too, right?
You're absolutely right.
Interesting. Bob, what are some things healthcare IT leaders should be thinking about as they go through these various transitions, whether it's acquisitions or upgrades, consolidation that he talks about, and how can they take advantage of these kind of next-gen clinical features in their EHR? MEDITECH Expanse has really pushed things forward, I think. So
yeah, and there's a lot of functionality in there that, again, to Darrell's point, a lot of organizations never tap into, don't know how to apply, and or are struggling with internal politics about what to do where and how to rearrange things into best practice workflows, right? Organizations should, when they're going through that EHR, looking to purchase something, looking to implement something and improve something, they should consider this to be a long-term project, right? While the project itself, the implementation has a timeline, a project and all of a project plan and all of that, it's really about enhancing, and it never stops. So that's one thing to consider. You need to make sure that there are always additional phases, and you're trying to sort of reap the benefits of some of these advanced systems. The other thing is to be deliberate about involving your end users. Make sure that they are part of this process. As you go through, and I'm dealing with a couple of hospitals we just brought live recently, there's a honeymoon period once you go live. Hey, great! We look what we did. Everybody's patting everybody on the back.
Do the video,
and then 2 weeks. And I talked to leaders about this, and I said, this is what's going to happen. This is exactly what's going to happen. All your issues, the first 2 weeks will be user access and printers. Right? That's what we're going to deal with. The lion's share of them. And then everybody's like, oh, this is great. But once you get beyond that 2 week period, in some places it's 3 weeks, some places it's 3 months. People start to say, hey, I used to, or I would like to, or why can't I? And they start to bring up this stuff. Now, in that process, in that go-live process, people have become accustomed to I reported my problem and it's fixed fast. A lot of these secondary issues or these issues that come up later are much more in line with the types of issues that you actually have to bring a committee together. You have to talk about this because it might change workflow, might change clinical practice. So you've got to involve the organization and the various departments and the users in that so they have some skin in the game and you're able to make the right changes at the right time for the right reasons.
And to his point, I think that you're right. Subject matter experts are the key to this whole piece. And when they're not involved and leaders are making decisions about workflows, it's hard. And you're right. People do when they get past that honeymoon period, then they fall back on it. The best EMR anybody has ever used was the one they just left. And it's always
like the backup quarterback.
It is exactly right. Absolutely.
That's interesting. And I think we have short-term memory of the pros, and we remember the pros and we forget the cons. Correct. Right? Like that's the nature of humans. Bob, you point out something interesting, and there's a trite phrase, right? People, process, and technology. Right. That's how we change things. And you talked a lot about the people. How can you approach making sure that you're user focused with either the physicians or the clinicians, and using best practices to help health IT leaders? What would you offer there to, is it having those governance committees, or what would you suggest?
They help. A governance committee will help prioritize a list, right? So you may end up with this list that has 50, 80, 100 things on it. You can't work on all of them at the same time. How do you prioritize that? So the governance committees can play a pivotal role in that. With regards to workflow changes and clinical practice impact, those types of things, having smaller task forces that are very dedicated to that have the right people there. And then one area that I think a lot of organizations, when they go through these processes, don't pay enough attention to is really documenting the current state, right? Whether that's done at the beginning of a project or if you're doing some enhancement to a particular workflow, understanding what it is you have to do. What's the goal? What are the inputs? Who are the people and the departments that are involved in it? And flowing it out. I have a lot of folks on my team that hate when I say flow because they think Visio and then like, oh my God, I got to use Visio again. But I love it because it's like, it's a very simple tool to put up on the wall and somebody says, oh, I didn't know Mary did that, or we had to send this document there, or this report has to be produced here. And people get a very good view, a very holistic view of what's going on. And from that, then you can work to improve and change. The system can change this, the system can improve this. It can't do this, maybe that's where we need to involve another, a department or another person in the department. So taking that approach, I think, is very important, and it gives you the right amount of buy-in. It gives you the right amount of analysis, right? You're kind of looking at it in this big, broad stroke, and I think you make better decisions that way.
Yeah.
It's funny you should say that. So I'm really proud of this one. We just achieved it as the end of this fiscal year for us, but we have every staff member within North Country Healthcare, 1,080 of us, are now Yellow Belt trained.
Wow.
And you're talking about doing workflows. And look at this. That's one of the key components, is getting a current state before you can do that. So documenting those and putting those out has really, really helped us. One of the things I think that CereCore brought to us that was of real benefit was this. We have subject matter experts, but like I said, they're very limited in their scope, and there's turnover, and then those individuals leave. So that knowledge gap is now lost, and it's very, very difficult to do that. The resources that CereCore brought in were specialty. We didn't define. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, on this. We didn't really define the players as it unfolded. We had key players, and then they brought in the additional resources that were needed to augment and fit the gaps that we had within our system.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I love that you're engaging everyone in that process. And let's just hope AI can do the Visio flows for us in the future. But you're right. Seeing it matters, right? And it changes how you look at a process or a workflow. So I think that's interesting.
Most definitely.
So Darrell, I understand that we need to, applaud you and your organization. North Country has been recognized for the past 3 years as a Chime Digital Health Most Wired organization, and as I understand it, the highest ranking winner in your state. So congratulations to you and the team.
Thank you.
But how can you keep the momentum to improve health IT adoption and really drive more efficiencies for your organization, especially when I think everyone understands that we have ongoing resource constraints, that are real for every organization, especially critical access hospitals, I think.
It is a challenge. We've embarked on a journey for HRO, looking to become a highly reliable organization. Okay. And in doing so, you put some of those key pillars, patient safety, to the top of that list. And if your EMR is not being utilized to its most efficient manner, or if it's in some ways outdated, you're losing some of that. So it is paramount, realizing that all of healthcare seems to be driven by technology at this point. It is absolutely paramount that you keep those systems up to date and as fresh as you can. It is probably one of the strongest initiatives that we would have to be able to achieve that. Everything else will start to come out of that. You can't possibly achieve the highest safety standards unless you're looking at medication reconciliation or barcode administration. And I mean, another achievement we have 98% of medication administration reconciliation within our system now. This year's goal is 99. We are going to be relentless in that pursuit. That doesn't take money, that just takes focus, and you need the tools to be able to get there. So we continue on that journey.
Yeah, it's interesting. I heard one person say we have enough tools. We needed to use them better.
Correct. I would agree. I would agree.
Sounds like my basement.
That's a good point. Well, Bob, we're here at the MEDITECH Live Conference. Talk to us about being a MEDITECH Alliance partner and how that's gone for you and CereCore.
Yeah, I mean, we were a ready partner when that was the label that was applied to it, and now it's changed to an alliance partner. Having access to kind of what MEDITECH is developing, having access to senior leaders within the MEDITECH space and the MEDITECH Corporation, I think is really, really important. It helps us really sort of bridge the gap that sometimes exists between the vendor for software, in this case, the customer, and then how do we support the customer, right? We provide a lot of advocacy, so with regards to what should be done and pushing MEDITECH on certain things, and leveraging those relationships, I think, benefits our customers. So it's been very beneficial for us.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. You're talking to lots of their customers, and you can give a broad view. It's interesting in the publishing area. They're like, "Would you want to talk to the vendor?" I'm like, vendors talk to hundreds of users. Like, they have a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
That's very useful. It sounds like it's similar.
Very much so.
That's great. Well, Darrell, Bob, I appreciate you taking time to sit down with us. I know it's a busy conference for you all, talking with other people, going to sessions. So thanks for sharing your insights and perspectives. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcasting application. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank you for having us.